The 2026 World Cup is in the United States, and fans from Senegal and Ivory Coast are blocked unless they already have visas. Iranian and Haitian fans, well, they're banned outright. So you can qualify for the World Cup and then be refused entry. Well, that's not security, that's discrimination dressed up as policy. This tournament is supposed to be global. Instead, it's being hosted by a government deciding which nationalities are acceptable. Even SEPP BLATTER is backing a fan boycott. When he's saying this is a problem, it's a problem. If millions of fans can't attend because of who they are or where they're from, the competition is already compromised.
Major update, guys, on the FIFA World Cup. Remember, Brother Joshua said that there would be no FIFA World Cup in 2026 because things will not be business as usual. I'm tracking his prophecy to see how it will go down. I don't believe there will be a World Cup, and I believe that Jesus Christ is coming soon. But here we have an update. Former FIFA president SEPP BLATTER joins calls to boycott men's World Cup games in the United States. Guys, this is not anyone. This is the former FIFA president coming out and saying, boycott the World Cup. Let's read a bit more. Former FIFA president SEPP BLATTER is backing a proposed fan boycott of men's World Cup matches in the United States because of the conduct of President Donald Trump and his administration at home and abroad. Mr. BLATTER, who has faced his own scandals, was the latest international soccer figure to call into question the suitability of the United States as a host country. He called for the boycott in a post on X. Now let's go and find that post on X. So this is Mr. BLATTER's X post. For the fans, there's only one piece of advice. Stay away from the USA. I think Mark Pieth is right to question this World Cup. Proof? In my last video, I showed an article where a German football executive from the German Football Federation was calling for was pushing for talks for the boycott of the World Cup. So as you can see, more and more voices in the football world, not politicians, football world themselves, influential voices, and now an ex-FIFA president is calling for the boycott of the World Cup. Now, whatever you think about Brother Joshua, it seems like every growing day, with his prophecy about there being no FIFA World Cup in 2026, he's starting to look like he's right? And I know you're all going to say, oh, he only said that because it was in relation to the rapture happening, right? But the truth is, listen, we've got 5 months between now and the World Cup. The World Cup may be cancelled. There's a good chance it's going to be cancelled, and that there could be a rapture between now and then. Jesus is coming. No World Cup 2026 because things will not be business as usual.
South Africa, Bafana must officially withdraw. SAFA must take a decision to withdraw from having anything to do with the World Cup that is taking place in America. When a country starts disrespecting international law, which declared that apartheid is a crime against humanity, and other people still wanted to trade with South Africa, a lot of countries refused to trade with South Africa because it was violating human rights, it was violating international law. So we must boycott the World Cup in America and boycott anything that has got to do with America, because we cannot sit back and allow a person to destabilize the world and it becomes business as usual. That is an act of cowardice.
Remain silent. Just make sure you remain silent, okay? Don't answer any questions. Just say, plead the fifth.
You're calling for a boycott. I've listened to you. I've listened to you. I've listened to you. I've listened to you. Well, I've just given you what you're calling for is a boycott of a sports event. Every country in the world that you awarded a World Cup to, I haven't finished. Every country in the world you award a World Cup to could potentially have a challenge attached to it. You've got a democratically elected president brought in on a mandate specifically around immigration, taking hardline policies because he means it, and you're suggesting that ultimately the rest of the world should boycott that on the back of that. I think it's nonsense.
What I'm talking about are empirical facts, which is the fact of the fan experience, the fact of what's happening outside the stadium.
On what basis is it empirical data? These events haven't happened yet.
The green card, people with green cards being kidnapped, of course it has.
No, we're talking about a sporting event. You use the example of how would you like to be in a football stadium or a sports stadium where the person next to you is being checked for their papers. So what empirical data are you basing that upon?
That is a statement that ICE has already made. So you want to say that ICE are actually...
No, I'm asking you. You're talking about this is happening now inside sports arenas. Which sports arenas are we talking about?
So you think that your assumption about what they do is better?
No, I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. You said you had empirical data based upon what's happening now, and we've got a tournament that's opened 2 days ago, and you're saying that's the basis for your empirical data.
No, the empirical data that I have said, and I was actually quite clear about it, is exactly what the conditions of the Trump administration have been regarding immigration, which your statements belie that data. So I was responding to what you have said.
Brother Joshua in June of 2025 last year prophesied that there will be no World Cup in 2026 because things will not be business as usual. And guys, I have some updates. I'm covering and tracking this prophecy. And now we have politicians from the UK and Germany calling for the boycott of the World Cup over the Greenland issue with Donald Trump. Last resort, German politicians suggest World Cup boycott over Greenland issue. A member of the German parliament has raised the possibility of a boycott of the 2026 World Cup. A German politician has suggested that the German national team could boycott the 2026 World Cup held in the United States, Canada and Mexico as a last resort in order to get President Donald Trump to see sense on the Greenland issue. Calls for Scotland and England to boycott the World Cup over Trump's Greenland obsession as a backlash over his threats grow. MPs have called for the home nations to boycott the Men's Football World Cup this summer in response to US President Donald Trump's plans to annex Greenland. Conservative former Minister Simon Hoare and Liberal Democrat MP Luke Taylor intimated that both England and Scotland, along with any other home nations who qualify through the playoffs, should pull out of the tournament in protest. Mr. Hoare said the government needed to fight fire with fire and embarrass Trump, adding that King Charles III could cancel his planned state visit to America. It's no longer fans anymore that are boycotting the World Cup. Now politicians are beginning to speak up, and these are politicians from very influential countries like Germany and the UK, where football is practically a religion in these nations. I mean, these nations have participated in the World Cup just about every World Cup since the 1900s. I'm going to keep covering this, and I believe Brother Joshua will be vindicated in the end. Jesus is coming. The world, every day that passes by, things are not looking like business as usual. Things are not looking great for the FIFA World Cup. FIFA issues statement after Donald Trump bans 15 World Cup countries from the United States. So FIFA has issued a statement about the upcoming World Cup as Donald Trump's travel ban continues to throw things into chaos. The 79-year-old has made it clear that he doesn't want people from certain countries visiting the United States, taking the total tally to 75 this week, while Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem previously explained the slightly crazy reasoning behind the bans. In a strong-worded post on X, she wrote, "I just met with the president. I am recommending a full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies." The travel ban comes into place just a few months before the tournament is set to begin, with fans of Iran who boycotted the draw, and Haiti, for whom this is a first ever World Cup, already told that they won't be able to attend. And after Trump added a hefty amount of countries to his list, the fans of Senegal, Ivory Coast, Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Ghana, Jordan, Morocco, Tunisia and Uruguay may have just had their plans thrown into doubt. So this is FIFA's statement. A match ticket does not guarantee admission to a host country, and fans should visit each country's government website today for entry requirements for Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Given the processing times involved, FIFA recommends submitting the visa application as early as possible. Now, like a week or two ago, Trump literally threatened to do strikes, bombings inside Mexico, which is another fellow host nation for the World Cup. Of course, he says these strikes are aimed at drug cartels who are bringing drugs into the United States. But the president of Mexico just rejected that. Claudia Sheinbaum said, this is an internal matter. Let us deal with it. No military intervention, right? But Trump still kept on threatening military interventions, strikes. And now the United States is at odds with Canada, another fellow host nation of the World Cup, over Greenland. This is from Politico. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney warned Friday that a decision on who owns Greenland doesn't belong to US President Donald Trump. The future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for the Kingdom of Denmark, Carney told journalists at a press conference in Beijing. Carney urged NATO allies, including the United States, to respect their commitments, as he stressed Canada's support for the Danish sovereignty over the strategically vital Arctic island, which Trump has threatened to seize. We are NATO partners with Denmark, and so our full partnership stands. Canada, they're NATO partners with Denmark, Carney said in his first remarks on the intensifying diplomatic brouhaha. Our obligations on Article 5, Article 2 of NATO stand, and we stand full square behind those. So the Prime Minister of Canada basically said, if Trump and the United States invade Greenland, or forcibly take Greenland, which Denmark and Europe has emphatically said, nope, we're not giving you Greenland. If Trump uses military force, Canada has said we are going to come to the defense of Greenland and Denmark. So they'd basically be at war with the United States if the United States forcibly tries to seize Greenland. Another thing to add is if the United States does forcibly seize Greenland, this is just going to be another reason for fans of the Soccer World Cup to boycott the World Cup. It's going to bring them into trouble with Canada, another fellow host nation. It's just going to bring a lot of doubt into the World Cup being hosted, period. I can see Europe boycotting the World Cup. The World Cup is huge in Europe. It's a bit like football is like the sport of Europe. You know what I mean? If the United States were to do something like this to a European nation such as Greenland, which is part of Denmark, I can just see massive boycotts coming from Europe. I mean, it would just strain. It would be the end of NATO, and it would be terrible for European-US relations. Europe would be on their own, America would be on its own. America's literally just isolating themselves from the rest of the world with all the actions that they're taking. Brother Joshua said that there would be no FIFA World Cup in 2026. Remember that. He prophesied in June of 2025 that Jesus told him back in 2018 there will be no World Cup in 2026 because things will not be business as usual. There's a lot going on in the world. You've got the Iran, Israel, America threatening to get involved in that. You've got the Greenland situation. You've got the Russia-Ukraine thing. And I'm sure there's more I could list. Like China, Taiwan, Japan, North Korea. Yeah. The way things are headed for the rest of this year, with us only being 17, 18 days into 2026. How rapidly things are accelerating. I just don't think there's going to be a World Cup.
The next World Cup's being held in America, and nobody's making any noise about human rights when it comes to America holding the World Cup. And when you look at America's recent history, they've destroyed Iraq, destroyed Libya, If you're going to talk about human rights, you've got to start with the top and work it down. You can't just say.
Are you one of these people who says that if you start questioning host countries on their human rights records, the World Cup can only be held in somewhere like Sweden?
No, not at all. I'm someone that says if you want to talk about human rights, you've got to be consistent about it.
Okay.
You can't just point at Arabs and Africans and say, oh, your human rights are terrible, without having a look at ourselves and what we've been complicit in. That would be utter hypocrisy and, in fact, race.